And my name is Emmanuel Bwedu, and I'll be making the presentation on this topic. In our business growth series, we've discussed a lot of topics, and today we are also going to discuss conflict resolution. Now, the word conflict itself has a very broad meaning, but for the purpose of this forum, would like to keep it short and redirect our attention to our businesses. And then within this would be find out what is conflict. We'll also see the types of conflicts that we have. We will also see the causes and effects of conflict. And we'll also look at the conflict resolutions and then conflict resolution management strategies. Yes, the strategies in which we can use to resolve conflict or to manage them. Good. Now, if I may ask, what is conflict? For the purpose of this training, as I said earlier on, we are going to keep it really short and for us to grasp the meaning of what conflict is. So we want to say conflict is a serious disagreement or argument. Yes, a serious disagreement or an argument. And it can be either by our ideas, goals, decision, plan. It can even be personal, financial, political, or even what? Emotional. Yes. So conflict can arise from all these things, and a disagreement or an argument with all these things, either your idea or your plans. Okay. So we'd want to look at the types of conflicts that we have. And first and foremost, we look at the intrapersonal conflict. Now, when we say intrapersonal conflict, we are referring to conflict that occurs with one's self. You having a conflict with yourself, trying to decide on what business you want to start, as an example. Probably you want to go into soap production, or you want to go into bakery, or you want to go into tailoring. You need to decide what you want to do. And sometimes it becomes a conflict because you do not know what to start with. Secondly, we have the interpersonal conflict. Now, with the interpersonal conflict, it is a conflict that arises between two or more individuals. It can arise between two or more individuals, maybe because of an idea or a plan that is not sitting with all parties. Yes, that can bring about conflict. We also talk about the intra-group conflict. And now the intra-group conflict is referring to a group of members of the same group, okay, having a misunderstanding on where next to move the group to, or a decision that the group wants to take. Yes, and that's why sometimes you have voting within a group because they need to find their direction. So this intra-group conflict refers to members of the same group having misunderstanding or an argument. We want to also look at the intergroup conflict. Yes, it explains itself. Intergroup conflict between two groups, might be two opposing groups or two groups with a specific goal at hand. And the fifth one, we also look at the intra-organizational conflict. Now, the intra-organizational conflict also deals with conflicts within an organization. Maybe the board of directors want to take an action or want to go ahead with a certain plan, and they have a certain goal which is not sitting with all members. Yeah, so this becomes an intra-organizational conflict. Finally, we'll talk about the inter-organizational conflict, which deals with the conflict between two different organizations. Yes. So two different organizations that might be competitors. Okay, both competitors. So all the time, everybody is struggling and everybody is fighting to be at the top, and there will always arise conflict when this happens. Now, we have looked at what conflict is and the types of conflict, but what are the causes? Well, research has shown that there are three key areas where conflict can arise or will arise. And these are the causes of the conflict. It can either be a perspective, it can be a feeling, it can also be an action. So with the perspective, you realize that you find people with different values. Just as the Islamic banks, they don't give out loans to maybe someone who wants to go into alcoholic beverage production because of the values that they have, okay, as a people. Yeah, if you want to go into alcoholic beverages or want to open a club or a bar, yes, they would not give you funding for such projects or for such businesses. And when we also talk about conflicting personality, sometimes in our day-to-day life, in our business setting, let's be realistic. We see certain people and we just don't like them. Okay, some people bring business proposals to us, but because you just don't like the person you are seeing, the person's personality does not conform with your kind of personalities that you like, you just tend to avoid that person. Sometimes it can bring out conflict because the person will feel you are discriminating. You get, so yes, it can bring up conflict. Opposing interests. Now, with opposing interests, it can arise in intra-group conflict, yes, because if the members of the group have different interests that they all want to achieve, then this different perspective can cause or will cause conflicts within a group, an organization, or yes, within a group or an organization. Yeah. So when we look at the feeling, how can feeling cause conflict? Now, we can talk about competition. Now, competition can both fall on under feeling and then action. Okay, because one feels that, well, I need to succeed. I need to make this thing work. Now, that feeling alone will make you so competitive, and sometimes there will be so much conflict with your group members, those in which you are business partners with, because you're always in competition. You always want to be ahead of everybody, and you do not sometimes care about whose toes you are stepping on, but maybe other stakeholders care about the toes you are stepping on and how you want to achieve that goal. Now, lack of empathy. Lack of empathy can cause conflict. Let's take, for example, this instance where an employer, okay, an employee goes to an employer and pours out his heart about a certain problem that he or she is going through. If the employer decides not to be empathetic towards his employee, this can bring up some form of conflict, because the employee will start feeling, my boss doesn't care about me, so why should I care about his work? And we all know how sometimes this work setting can get. It is not lacking empathy does not mean that you will always cause conflict. No, but in some cases, and sometimes, yes, it does bring about conflict in the work environment or even in our businesses. Now, the desire for power, which is more likely like a competition, you want to get, you are so power thirsty, okay, that you don't want to listen to anybody's objective. You don't want to accept anything, but you have a goal. You want to become the next manager, you want to become the next supervisor. So you step on toes. That is when office politics starts. Even at the place of work, when you have your employers, your employees working together, some of them want to have favor. They want to find favor in the eyes of their employers. So they tend to do dubious things and set traps just because they want to put their fellow colleagues in a negative zone where you see them as bad or wicked or not working, and they would be promoted so that they can have the power over them. So that desire for power can cause a lot of conflict and a lot of problem. Finally, we talk about actions. Poor communication. Poor communication. How does this cause conflict? Now, poor communication can bring about conflict in the sense that if you do not communicate properly with your client, that the task that has been given to you will be accomplished. Let's say, for instance, you are given an order to deliver. Okay, you're a delivering company, and you're supposed to deliver an item. Now, if you do not get clear directions or you do not communicate properly to your dispatch rider that, okay, take this item and I need you to be at Sakumono, at SINOP's office at this particular time because it is urgent and they need it at this particular time. If you do not clearly communicate this to your dispatch rider, and at the end of the day, your dispatch rider gets there at 11. Now, your client will be upset, will not be happy, will not be satisfied because your dispatch rider did not get here on time. And it might be because you poorly communicated the urgency of the matter to him. So yes, poor communication as an action can cause conflict. Lack of planning. How can lack of planning cause conflict? Lack of planning, how can it cause conflict? Now, for instance, let's say you are a caterer, okay, and you have an order to prepare food for a wedding, okay, and now your client gives you or pays you and gives you the whole plan, the whole itinerary, and then you on your part, you fail to plan properly, like, okay, since I need to deliver this on Saturday, then I need to go and buy all the items that I need today so that by Saturday I will be done. And you delay, and at the end of the day, during the wedding, the food is not ready. They ask, where is the food? The food is not here because the caterer failed and disappointed. You realize that at the end of the day, your client will be so upset at you. And now that social media is an easy place to go, can even spoil your business on social media because he or she was not satisfied. He or she will start exchanging words with you, and there'll be a lot of conflict arising up from you not being able to deliver as planned because you lack proper planning. In fact, you lack planning at all. You get it? So last but not the least, on the action column, well, there are so many more of these causes of conflict under these three dimensions, which is the perspective, feeling, and action. There are so many factors also that can cause conflict, but we want to limit ourselves for the purpose of this discussion to just this that we have listed. Now, poor staff selection. Sometimes some employees employ because of referrals. The person holding the position is not fit, is not well trained or properly trained for the job, and the person is there. And the person too is not learning, is not trying to upgrade himself or herself. You realize that when situations arise, and this stuff that you have put in place to be able to resolve this problem is not able to resolve the problem. Let's say, for customer care, for instance. If you put a rude person in customer care just because, oh, I know this person, the person needs a job, you realize that because the person is rude, he's going to push away a lot of clients because that person is a poor selection for that position. So yes, in our everyday life, whilst we are dealing with people, whilst we are being confronted with conflict every day and now, we should always bear these things in mind. Our perspective, our feelings, and our actions, both of us and others, will always bring about conflict of some sort. Now that we've seen some causes of conflict, let us look at the effects of conflict. Now, conflict can cause so many negative feedbacks in our workplaces. It can cause work disruption. It can decrease productivity because every day somebody is screaming at someone, somebody is not understanding clear procedures, following SOPs. It can also bring about project failures. It can cause absenteeism from work. It can even bring about termination of contract. Notwithstanding, there are so many other effects, negative effects to this. There are so many other negative effects to this, okay? But we are just, again, for the purpose of this discussion, we just limit it to just this few so that we'll all get the idea of what we are talking about this evening. There's also a positive aspect of conflict sometimes. Yes, there's always a positive aspect. Now, what is that positive aspect? You see, sometimes conflict can actually motivate someone to generate new ideas and innovations. Okay, and it can also lead to increased flexibility and a better understanding of working relationships. Yes, it can be a motivator to generate new ideas and innovations. So in certain, in customer care, for instance, at first, customer cares, when you talk with someone, it is not recorded. But now you realize that anytime there's a customer care or you're calling any customer care services, they tell you that this call is being recorded for what? For training purposes. Yes, that is the innovation that came about because mostly people will call and they will say, oh, when I spoke to this person, the person spoke to me rudely and this and that. So now that customer care agents know that, okay, they are being recorded, sometimes they are more polite than ever. You get. And then if you have a conflict because you are not able to meet a deadline, okay, for producing or for supplying a specific item, maybe to site or for the wedding guest, for instance, the food you were supposed to prepare did not get to site not get to the venue on time, or they didn't even get there at all. This will make you do what? Come up with a new idea that, okay, no, next time when I have this kind of order, because it's this big, I need to put in this measure, that measure, in order to increase, yes, your rate of dependency for you to be able to. Hello, can you guys hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, Kefi, I see you. Welcome to this forum. Okay, so yes, you can come up with these new great ideas that you can generate, and become innovative. So yes, we've been talking about conflict resolution. However, we should understand that conflict needs to be managed in order to contribute to the success of any organization. And why do we say this? There's one thing we should all understand is that conflict in itself cannot always be resolved. I repeat that conflict cannot always be resolved, but it can be managed. Okay, conflict can be managed. So now let's look at what conflict means, or conflict resolution, what it actually means. And we'll then go ahead to see how we can manage these conflicts. Okay, so conflict is a range of processes. Conflict resolution, sorry, is a range of processes that is aimed at alleviating or eliminating the sources of conflict. So conflict resolution, it has an aim, and the aim is to alleviate or eliminate the source of the conflict. And it is also a way for two or more parties to find a peaceful solution to a disagreement amongst them. Now, we are breaking this down to the simplest form as possible, so that we will tend to understand how conflict resolutions can also apply to our day-to-day life and in our businesses, okay? Because this discussion is based on our business growth series, and today we are looking at the conflict resolution, and now we are getting the understanding that the conflict resolution is a way for two or more parties to find a peaceful solution to a disagreement amongst them. To manage a conflict is also to reduce the negative aspect of the conflict whilst increasing the positive aspect of conflict. So as we said earlier on, they are both the positive side and then the negative side. And then we cannot entirely or wholly do what eliminates conflict or resolve conflict. Sometimes we can, but sometimes we need to manage it. Good. Now, let's look at the conflict resolutions and the management. What are some of the strategies that can be used in resolving or managing conflict? Now, we have the competing style of conflict resolution. For some people, their way of resolving conflict is to get what they want at the expense of others. Whatever you say, whatever you do, he still pursues his own concerns at the expense of the other person. There is that strategy that people use in order to resolve their conflict, but it's not the best way to resolve a conflict, if we can all agree to it. Okay, then the next one is a compromising style. So this style is used when the outcome is not really crucial and you are losing time. Because sometimes you find out that even in marketing and sales, you would have to compromise your decisions in, okay, this customer says they want this item A, and you know that's not the right price. It's a bit lower, although you break even, you're not making any profit. But sometimes you just compromise, okay, you take it and give me, because you want to sell it fast and move to the next client, and maybe you can make your profit there. So yes, so you compromise, you use this compromising style to resolve that exchange of, oh, I will give you $1,000, or I'll give you a $950 kind of, engagement. Yes. Now we'll also talk about the avoiding style. Now, we are encouraged to use this when it is safer to postpone dealing with the situation, or if you don't want to have, the outcome doesn't interest you. You see, you don't have great concern about the outcome. Whatever happens should happen. So you avoid it totally, like, okay, oh, okay, you have this problem with me. Okay, my business, what I supply to you, you say it's not up to standard, it's not, you just avoid the person. You don't want to continue, or you don't want to prolong the conflict or the negotiation or whatever is happening between both of you. So you avoid it because the outcome really don't bother you. But probably you see that, okay, this client is not a really big client. You have bigger clients that you deal with, and you just want to avoid this particular client. Now we also have the accommodating style. Now the accommodating style, we are encouraged to use this when we don't really care a lot about the outcome, okay? But we want to preserve or build the relationship with that individual. Mostly we are not concerned what we will achieve at the end of the day, but just the fact that we know that, oh, maybe tomorrow I will need the services of this young man. Maybe tomorrow I'll need the services of this company, or I'll need your services or your training. So let me just forgo this, let me just accommodate him, and then let's build that relationship. So if you notice, a lot of customer care agents use this style a lot, because you find out that when a customer calls, they accommodate a lot of their excesses. You know, they will rant and, you know, complain here and there, complain. But the service personnel, the customer service personnel will be quite accommodating, listen to you, you know, be empathetic with you and try to solve your problem, because they need to preserve that relationship, or they want to build a new relationship with you. Now, the collaborating style, which for me, I think tops them all. Okay, and with the collaborating style, both parties can get what they want, and the negative feelings are minimized. Collaboration style is best when there's a long-term relationship and the outcomes are important. That is why sometimes you see top companies having mergers. You see two business men decide that, okay, you know what, I am producing sobolo. You are also producing what, pastries. Why don't we come together and, you know, form a company and let's collaborate, and then we'll move on. Instead of us to compete with each other, we can, you know, come together, find a common interest, and then work together to have a long-term relationship and get a very good outcome from that. So collaborating style is like a top-notch style that everybody is advised to use to resolve conflict or to manage the conflict that you have. So having the collaborating style in mind, would want to look at the 7 steps to effective conflict resolution. Now, we want to do this whilst having the collaborating style, or the collaborating style, that strategy in mind. Okay, please, can you guys hear me? Mr. Ampofo, you are welcome. Thanks for joining us.
We can hear you.
Good. Good. So we'll talk about the 7 steps for effective conflict resolution. Now, we want to discuss this bearing the collaborative style, okay, of the conflict resolution strategy in mind, whilst we go through these 7 steps. Now, what is the first step? The problem. We need to identify what the issue is. And we need to be clear about what the problem is, what is actually causing the conflict. Okay, is it because the money that was given to the caterer wasn't enough? Or is it because the caterer didn't plan properly? Or is it because your staffs were being lackadaisical in production? What is the cause? What is the problem of the conflict? When that is stated, when you're able to identify that issue, then you move on to the next step. Now, the next step is understanding everyone's interest. Understanding everyone's interest. So now, having the collaborative style in mind, we'll then know that since this is a conflict between 2 people, 2 or more people, we need to sit down and understand, okay, what is in for you? Party A, what is in for you? Party B, what is in for you? When you're able to understand these things, as an individual who is in a conflict yourself, if you're able to understand these things, then it will be the decision-making or the conflict resolution process will get easier as you go along. But if you are a third party trying to resolve a conflict, now, if you understand everyone's interest, you will also be able to know, okay, this will be the next proper step for me to take in order for an effective conflict resolution. Now, let's look at the step after we now understand everyone's interest. What is next? The third step is for us to list the possible solutions. Yes, we list all the possible solutions. After we're able to list the possible solution or solutions, we'll see why we need to list this in our next step. Okay, we'll see why we need to list all our possible solutions in our next step. Now, the next step is to evaluate the options. You get? Now, all the options that you have stated in step 3, now you need to evaluate them. How do you do this? Or why do you do this? Now, you want to do the evaluation so that you'll be able to tell that if I take route A or plan A or option A, the end result is C. So you make an evaluation. Okay, if I'm investing $1,000 in your business, what will I gain at the end of maybe 3 months, or at the end of the day? What am I going to achieve from it? You evaluate it. Okay, I will be able to make this much. Okay, now the conflict you guys are having is finding out how much is actually needed in that form of business. How much do you need as a caterer for you to be able to produce this meal for this wedding? How much do you need? You need to evaluate. Okay, if you're able to give me maybe 15 cedis or 20 cedis per head, I'll be able to make this much and that much and that much for you. If you give me 10 cedis, I'll be able to make this much for you. If you give me 50 Ghana per head, I will be able to make this much food for you, drinks, and at this certain level, at a certain class. So now we know why we need to list our options. So when we list them, we'll be able to evaluate each one of them and see the end game. Now, step 5. See, after we finish evaluating the options, we need to select an option. Okay, we need to select an option or options, but sometimes one way is not the only way. Sometimes we need two or three ways in order to move forward. So we select the option or options that we feel, okay, or all the party or all the stakeholders involved in the conflict feel that they need to select. So they select it. Okay, after evaluating it and considering all aspects necessary, the options are selected. We look at the third part where we need to document the agreement. Now, after selecting the options, okay, now the reason why it is either you select an option or options means you need to have contingencies. Okay, you have contingencies in the agreement in the first option that you've chosen. Yeah, you need contingency plan so that in case the first option doesn't go as planned, what next? So all of this is documented with the original agreement of the way forward if things do not go the way they have planned initially. So these are documented and all parties agree to it. So I'll need to remind you again, we are looking at this from the collaborating style of conflict resolution. Okay, it's a style under the strategies of conflict management or conflict resolution. So yes, there's a document, the agreement is documented and both parties sign and everybody have a copy. And then we move on to the final and the 7th step, which is they agree on the next contingency to implement. If the original option doesn't go well, then now they agree on, okay, now let's do this. Okay, let's choose this contingency and let's work with this contingency. And whilst doing so, we keep monitoring, they keep evaluating those contingency plans. So this in a nutshell would come to the conclusion. But as I said earlier on, for the purpose of this discussion, we are keeping it short and straight because conflict resolution is a very broad topic. Okay, it is an umbrella for a whole range of methods and approaches for dealing with conflict, and it boils down from negotiations to diplomacy, from mediation to arbitration, facilitation to adjudication, like so many ways. Even peacekeeping is also a way for conflict resolution. You get, and there are other steps that are also taken for conflict preventions. So conflict resolution is actually a very broad topic on its own, but for the purpose of this discussion, we are trying to keep it short, simple, so that we can also we can implement it in our businesses. We can implement some of this strategy to manage the conflicts that we have in our businesses, and so on and so forth. In our business or our place of work. Okay, so in summary, we've come to understand conflict and its effects, its negative effect and the positive effect. We've also come to understand that some conflicts cannot be resolved totally. We spoke about the competing style of conflict resolution. That means if both parties have made up their mind to implement the competing style of conflict resolution, then the conflict will not be resolved, will never be resolved. Okay, so we say conflict cannot be resolved totally, but can be managed. Just like the collaborating style, conflicts are managed by understanding the benefits of what is in for everybody, and they all come to select an option that is best for one another because of a long-term relationship that they want to build. And finally, we just spoke about the 7 steps to resolve conflicts. Yes, just looked at the 7 steps to resolve conflict. So from our day-to-day activities, whether it's been intrapersonal conflict, interpersonal conflict, intra-group or intergroup conflict, let us endeavor to find proper strategies to implement in order to resolve our conflicts. So thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen, for joining into this discussion. And then if there are any questions to be asked, feel free and ask the question. And yes, I'll be open the floor for comments and questions. Any questions to be asked? Yes, Kefi.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you loud and clear.
Yeah, you spoke about collaboration.
Yes.
And when you did, you made mention of the interest of everybody's interest.
Yes.
Is there ever a case where everybody's interest will be met, or in your collaboration, the interests are not always equal? What are the differences between collaboration and compromise? Because I think that since all our interests would not be met, one has to compromise. So does the compromise come from the person trying to resolve the conflict, or it comes from the one who probably might be playing a role in the conflict? I don't know whether you get my question.
Yes, I get your question. So in conflict management or resolution, mostly in certain cases, not just one style is implemented. Okay, and if you look at the end game, see, with a collaborating style, the end game here is let's build a long-term relationship. Okay, that is when you start looking at I made mention of 2 people coming together maybe to start a business. Okay, the cards might not be even, all right? So they would understand, okay, let's collaborate, but one person would go, okay, but you are compromised when it comes to this. Okay, so 2 styles can be implemented at a time, okay, because of what that individual wants to achieve. All right. So mostly, as if we look at the compromising, what is it? And the compromising style, like this, for instance, if the outcome is not crucial, but if it's a crucial thing, you realize that the level of compromising is reduced. You get, the person might not even be willing to compromise because, oh no, I'm not ready to compromise because I need to make, I need to own this store. This store belongs to me. I need this contract to be I need to get this contract. The person is not ready to compromise for that, for any reason. And then maybe the other party, okay, the one okay, well, let me also make this clear, all right? Now, there can be conflict between two people and there will be a mediator, a third person, okay? So that is why we spoke more about the collaborating style, okay? Although the conflict might not be totally resolved, as we said, but we look at what? Minimizing the negative effect. Kefi, I don't know whether you get what I'm saying. Yes.
Yeah, I get your point. So you are trying to reduce the level of conflict that becomes negative.
Exactly. Okay. Exactly. That is when we say the conflict has been managed. The conflict has been managed. You get, or the conflict has been resolved.
Okay. But one more question. How would you make the other party feel like they are not being shortchanged? You know, we live in a society where if I feel that I am compromising more because of how you've been able to manage my expectations in resolving the conflict between me and the other person. And I realize that in the year or in the days to come, I realize that, okay, this person is now taking this task, which means that I have been shortchanged. And I think that maybe there could be a collaboration between the mediator and the other party, or in any case, whatever agreement that we've signed. How do you create a certain platform that necessarily will not bring future conflict that will now make you go into resolving again?
Okay, thank you, Kefi. Now, for every agreement, for every document, every what's it called? Yes, for every agreement, you realize that there's a clause, a termination clause, okay? And most of these clauses are there in order that, okay, when we have a certain understanding and we agree to it, now, when time goes by and you tend to change those clauses, I can decide to terminate it whilst you pay me a certain amount, or you have to compensate me with a certain amount, or you have to compensate me with something, okay, not necessarily financial, you get, and such issue can be taken to court. That is why, well, in the international world, we always hear of court of arbitration, because they always want to sit down and say, okay, you were supposed to do this, you didn't do that, what happened, and so on and so forth. Kevin, did you get that? Hello, Kefi, Mr. Roman. So yes, any other question, submission, any other contribution? Mr. Ampofu. Hey. Oh, I'll call it. Sorry, I've been calling Mr. Ampofu, sir. I'm sorry, okay? Please forgive me.
It's okay.
Please forgive me. You will correct me, eh? Anyways, please, do you have any contribution, any suggestion to
I didn't join early. I joined, I think, after 30 minutes. And
Okay.
from where I followed, the only question I would have had was what Kefi asked, and I think you answered it's okay. So,
Okay. All right.
But
So
this
thank you.
has been a good session.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I hope from the parts that you joined, at least we've been able to take something home. We'll be able to take something.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
So for further help on our business growth series, you can contact any of the names, any of the contacts on the screen right now. You can contact Dede or Evelyn. And you can also drop your email address so that we can also contact you, so that we can send you the previous trainings that have gone on in our business growth series. So you should feel free and contact any of those numbers and probably drop your email address too, so that these can be forwarded to you.
Okay, all right. Thank you very much.
Thank you too. Thank you so much. So your opinions matter. So I'm still open for any suggestions, contribution. Evelyn. Evelyn Asari, are you there? Okay, I think Evelyn doesn't have anything to say. Okay, so ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for joining in on our business growth series. And on this episode, we were looking at conflict resolution. And I'm glad you were able to make time to join us. Thank you very much. And you'll be updated for our next topic and our next time. So feel free to check out our website, www.sinopinvestment.com. Thank you very much, and bye-bye.